I've been doing this a long time. Whenever you work with people for, in some cases, many decades and they are no longer here, that's really, personally, very difficult and very difficult for our teams. To have a chance at surviving, Bethesda has to burn like a phoenix just to rise from the ashes, and right now, we're watching this from the front row. The studio is in a fever. Asha initiated a full-scale purge of the entire division, including Bethesda, handing the development of Fallout spin-off over to Obsidian, which completely crippled Bethesda's status as a monumental studio within Xbox. And apparently this triggered massive panic. It feels like Todd was completely dethroned and sidelined, and just to minimize the panic in gaming community and among investors, Bethesda rolled out an official statement about the state of their affairs and how they are actively developing their franchises. It's titled A Note from Bethesda Game Studios, which frankly begs the question, is Todd Howard still a legendary figure in a game development? And this phrase, today we want to share what's next for Bethesda Game Studios and what you can expect from us in the years ahead, reminds me of every corporate speech that instantly translates to, guys, things are bad, but we're going to plug this hole with massive promises. And to understand why this manifesto is a blatant lie, you just need to remember how they already tried to sell players a vision of a sweet future. It happened in 2018 when Todd announced Elder Scrolls 6 and Starfield, which is just a monumental failure for the studio in terms of game design, in terms of sales, and just in terms of the game's success. Because you simply cannot call this game a success. You just can't scrap an IP you've spent a ton of money and promises on. When I see videos about Skyrim in my YouTube feed, seeing how people are still playing it, and I get it, listen, algorithms will definitely push and feed me what I like. But if you just compare the data of how popular the search query for Starfield is versus Skyrim, the difference will be huge. Though theoretically, the newer the game is, the more popular it should be, but Starfield just can't keep up. It doesn't have the replayability that Skyrim offers. I'm going to skip the created by players block because that's literally just kissing up to the community and trying to win the players' favor. You'd better off dropping your outrageous mod commissions and filtering them better. Because that's not development the modern community, is just an attempt to cash in on what players have been doing for free for ages for other players. Funny enough, I never found a statement from Todd about revising the financial model for official community mods. Basically, it looks like, yeah, whatever, screw it, forget it. And since Bethesda has no new successful worlds left and they still need to eat, they keep digging up the graves of their old games. Next comes an interesting section called The Future of Fallout, and of course Fallout 5 remains our long-range destination, and we have multiple Fallout projects in active development right now. Essentially, it's the exact same situation as with Elder Scrolls 6. While we are not announcing any dates today, we've been working on remasters for both Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. When you have zero releases for your mainline franchises, you're forced to milk everything you had before and attract the widest audience possible just to max out the franchise's popularity and get maximum monetization out of it. It's a logical move. But in this case, it looks like downtime, because the Fallout TV shows are riding the hype wave, yet there's no new game that could simultaneously monetize both the old and new audience. Essentially, Bethesda right now is, if not an experimental studio, then a studio under Xbox's leadership that exemplifies the business model Microsoft envisions for its studios. Max out the popularity of major franchises across different media and entertainment types to secure peak monetization when the next mainline game drops. And in this case, of course, well, listen, every remaster is a treat for the fans. Yes, I liked Oblivion remaster. It delivered a dose of nostalgia. Without a doubt, the re-releases of Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas is a huge celebration and a great reason for fans of these two games to dive back in and replay the game with a nicer modern resolution primarily, maybe better lighting, and so on, with the small perks a remaster can offer. But globally, it's just a plug to wait out an empty release window. It's the same thing as with Assassin's Creed Black Flag remake, when Ubisoft just has a complete void in their release windows right now. It was simply their easiest way to make money and cash in. But churning out remasters is only half the problem. What's far more terrifying is who Todd Howard is now forced to delegate the development of these universes to. This is the cherry on top. Bethesda has been forced to hand over the development of a Fallout spin-off to Obsidian, something that should happen a long time ago. And this brings me back to the thought I mentioned. Is Todd Howard really still a legendary visionary game developer? I don't think so. Listen, it's impossible to work and be a visionary for everything when you have such a massive staff and such a huge number of projects. You can develop single-player games like Fallout, like Elder Scrolls. Maybe you can try making a new IP like Starfield, but in this situation, it seems to me that Todd Howard just became a manager a long time ago, and his status as the face of the studio has looked pretty weak for a while now. The problem is that franchises like Fallout and Elder Scrolls simply became the pillars on which modern games from other studios are built. But you don't wait for Elder Scrolls or Fallout, at least I don't, simply because there are a lot of other games around, and 15 years have already passed since the release of Elder Scrolls Skyrim. For me, these franchises became something that was put on a shelf, remaining only in memory and in history. The online games for Elder Scrolls and Fallout are certainly made for fans of single-player projects, but primarily their audience consists of people who like online games, and fans of single-player Elder Scrolls and Fallout are waiting for single-player games. Therefore, Fallout 76 and Elder Scrolls Online fundamentally cannot attract new players in such massive numbers. They aren't the main driving force because Bethesda was always about single-player RPGs with deep narrative and theoretically still is. So Todd Howard has become nothing more than just an effective manager who apparently isn't doing his job very well. We haven't seen a new games for a long time. Fallout, or rather a Fallout spin-off, was given to Obsidian, and this time it was done under pressure from CEO of Xbox, which says that things are bad, and the speed and pace of Bethesda's work completely dissatisfies Asha, since, as we've seen multiple times, she prefers fast decisions without dragging things out, getting everything done in the moment. But Asha isn't cracking the whip for nothing. All this panic, rushing and handing off franchises is tied to one massive technical problem they've been hiding for years. Originally, the creation engine worked purely for two games, Fallout and Elder Scrolls. The Elder Scrolls Online has its own engine called Hero Engine, which Bethesda licensed from a company called Simutronics. By the way, Star Wars: The Old Republic is on the exact same engine. After Microsoft acquired Bethesda, it seems that all this time since Starfield's release, the studio was working on optimizing its processes and developing a unified game creation environment, a unified software called Creation Engine 3. So it's obvious to me that Creation Engine 2 was just a crutch for Starfield, because Bethesda is no longer going to be a single studio working on its IPs, but rather a conglomerate of studios handling them. Creating unified software was necessary. Therefore, we can conclude that this is why the development of Elder Scrolls 6 dragged on for so incredibly long. We can also conclude that by having a shared development environment like Creation Engine 3, future IPs in the form of Fallout and Elder Scrolls will come out faster. And honestly, I'm glad Bethesda will make and continues to make their games on their own engine. Yes, it's not perfect, it has a ton of problems, but I don't think switching to Unreal Engine 5 is the best idea. For example, from an economic standpoint, Microsoft would have to pay for the license. Right now, Microsoft is actively cutting costs on all sorts of things, so paying for an Unreal license is definitely not part of their plans. Secondly, I don't view Unreal Engine 5 as a panacea for game development. It is better for the studio to keep working and building the game on the software they know how to work with, the engine they know, despite its problems, rather than trying to rebuild internal processes and retrain staff on new software. That would make a massive amount of time again, which once again doesn't fit into Microsoft's plans right now. And against the backdrop of this total painful overhaul of internal processes, the internet's reaction and Bethesda's own excuses sound especially hypocritical. So I want to touch a bit on one tweet I found which claims that most of Bethesda announced in this message should have started many years ago, which is logical in my opinion, I agree. And honestly, I didn't like Bethesda's response. Most of what we shared today has been in motion for years. We've just traditionally stayed quiet until things are ready to show. Pre-production is a longer road than people often realize, and there are a lot of moving pieces across our games, the TV series, and more. What I want to say about this is, why the hell did you announce Elder Scrolls 6 in 2018? Fine, we get it, you wanted to sell yourselves for a higher price tag, but why the hell are you just turning on the double standards right now? Overall, this whole situation shows me that Todd transformed from a once great game designer into a not so good manager who cannot control a bunch of projects alone and who is just throwing resources around. Ultimately, this leads to insanely long game production. Listen, Bethesda is burning right now. That's what's happening to the studio. There's nothing good about this because their management current model was garbage. That's why Asha grabbed Todd by the balls and told him to start working properly. Of course, for the fans, all these announcements are great news, because there will be sequels for their favorite franchises. But for the studio itself, right now, it's total disaster.